what's the philosophy of coaching? What do you guys actually do? So somebody, whether they go through Third Path or not, they could still be an IBEC client. Many of your clients, came to you on their own, or you met them at a conference or whatever. So somebody engages with you.
Hmm.
Uh, what are they looking for? What do you see that they need, and what does IBEC do about that?
Yeah, great question, Mike. I think, the beauty of being around for 18 years is you get to know a lot of people. You and I've had that luxury, networking and just getting out there and kind of in the trenches and finding out, who needs our help. And so a lot of the folks come to us. So when that happens, I think what we do, and really, I think we've gotten pretty darn good at it over the years, is we really have to make sure that we're going to provide value for these clients. So it's not just a matter of, in fact, in all honesty, I mean, in some cases we have to say no because it just isn't going to be a good fit. What they're looking for and what we provide might not be a good fit. But so when I say, is it a good fit or not? What are we looking for? We're really looking for a business, a practitioner, a founder who really wants to do there's got to be four boxes that are checked. We call it the quadruple bottom line, but it's more than just, bullet points on a PowerPoint. It's really got to be lived and breathed. It's got to be the DNA of the company, the DNA of the practitioner. And so what we're looking for is a business that's focused on sustainability. It's got to be a real business. Okay, that's the first thing. The second is we know that job creation, especially where you and I've been in the world, it's really hard to tell people about Jesus when kids are starving to death and young women are being trafficked out of villages. I mean, this is the reality of the places that we work. So we got to create jobs. And so the first thing we've got to do is get in there and create economic development and really build and grow these communities by creating jobs. So that's kind of the second thing. The third is we're not just Christians running businesses. So we're not just looking for Christians who are just running a business and kind of showing up. We're really looking for Christians who go to work with an intentionality and they really go in each
Yeah.
and every day and say, you know what, Lord, take my blinders off. How do I make disciples for you in the workplace? I'm going to be doing all these things out in the community. And that's a lot of companies do that, which is great. But what am I doing within the four walls of my business to glorify you and to make disciples for you? So that's the third thing that's really important. And then the stewardship piece, and when we think of good stewardship, I mean, there's environmental stewardship, there's financial stewardship, there's the people resource stewardship. What we look at is everything is God's. It's not just one thing or, we're going to kind of cherry pick what we think is applicable to our business. It's that we recognize that everything is His. And so our coaches are really good at every single call that we have with businesses. We never leave those calls without talking about how is God being glorified in the business. And so this is His business. What are we seeing God do in that business? How do we recognize that it's His business? And we never want to get over to the business side of the ledger and not focus on the ministry side. And so I think that those are the things that we really try to focus on.
So I'm curious, Bob, when you've got somebody that approaches you, and let's say they have not come through the TriVenture course, the Third Path courses,
Yeah.
because they would be more versed with these things before they came to you. But when they come to you, they don't understand all of this. Do you turn them away? What do you work? Do you take them in and try to coach them from where they are to where they need to be? What do you
Yeah,
do?
yeah, that's another great question. I think we have to be careful about saying no. Sometimes the answer may be not yet, and we just want to. I think we spend a lot of time on the front end before there's ever an engagement, because we really owe that to the client. We really want to make sure that if we're going to bring value to that client, that we really understand what their needs are. And so, that's the first thing, is really kind of peeling back the layers and getting to know them and spend as much time on the front end as we possibly can. I can tell you that anybody that comes that comes to me or to us as a team and is looking to start a business, they haven't done this particular business before. They're really looking at really the nuts and bolts of starting the business. I take them right to TriVenture. And you and I have been doing TriVenture now since 2019, when we launched it in Romania, and that is the combination of courses, your courses, coaching, and capital. There's nothing else out there like it. And so anybody that's a startup business, even if they've run another business before, but this is a new venture, we take them right into TriVenture. And we've launched a lot of businesses through TriVenture that would have never been launched any other way. Now, if it's a more seasoned business and they need a coach, a lot of times what they're looking for is they may be looking for raising capital. They may be looking for connections with investors. We certainly have those connections. But a lot of times they're looking for really somebody to come alongside and give them an opportunity to crystallize their strategy and really match it up with their operational plan. And as you know, it's one of the biggest reasons for failure out there is just the lack of an executional plan. You know, it's a plan that the strategy is great. You know, where I'm going to be in 3, 5, 7 years is right out there. I mean, everything looks good, but what am I doing on Monday to sell more than I spend? And so it's really bringing that tactical piece and really having somebody to hold them accountable. And the beauty of IBEC is that every one of our engagements, it's a one-on-one coach. And so if you and I are working together, I'm accountable to you, you're accountable to me. And so, you know, we really build that relationship right from the start. And I can tell you, most of the folks that we work with, we've been with for a long time. And so that relationship is
So, Bob, you and I've talked for years about
Yeah.
this. You're very fond of saying, don't try to do this alone.
Yeah.
And that's the value of a coach. And the same thing is true, I mean, in U.S. business or Western business. I mean, it's true anywhere in the world, but I think it's got to be much truer, if you can say that, or more intensely true
Yeah.
when you're trying to do business as mission in either a developing country, you're a national, you're Indian in India, or you're Colombian in the mountains of Colombia,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, but then if you're an expat, let's say you're from Brazil, but you wanting to do business in Togo,
Yeah.
that's 10 times harder.
Oh, yeah.
So when your coach looks at this, I mean, I get the idea of the executional plan, totally agree with that. But then I think about just the value of having another brother or sister
Yeah.
walk with you from where you are to where you're going. That's just an amazing thing. It reminds me of the old, I guess it's an African proverb, says if you want to go fast, go alone. If
Yeah.
you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And that's really, IBEC is about going far and lasting and building a sustainable business with long-term impact.
Yeah.
What do people say? And the lead up to this question should have been, a lot of BAM practitioners, whether they're nationals or whether they're, expats, they're coming from a place where they're very much pioneers. They're loners.
Yeah.
They're almost wired to be out there alone, and they struggle because of that. Talk to that just a little bit, Bob. Then when we'll finish this question, take a quick break, and then come back because I've got a lot more questions for you.
Yeah. No, I think that's, and it's one of the things that happens, and I'll just kind of focus on that expat, kind of lead up to this, the expat who's going over to a country. One of the things that we want to make sure before we ever flip the switch and start a business is, do we understand the culture and do we speak the language? Because so many of these businesses, they get over to an area, they kind of don't know what they're signing up for. And then all of a sudden it's just really tough. I mean, you and I both know, I mean, we're not going to sugarcoat this. This is tough stuff. I mean, it's tough to start a business in the United States, and you go overseas and there's factors that you just take for granted over here that you've got to deal with over there. And so we really try to understand, is this an area that they, quote, kind of call home? Is this an area that they've been before? Is it an area that they understand the culture and the people around them? And is their family bought in? I mean, that's a huge factor, is the family bought in? And so let's say that all of those kind of boxes are checked, so to speak, and it feels like it's the right fit. Now what we've got to do is we've got to tap into some of the other resources. We have a lot of businesses in a lot of parts of the world where we can team them up with others that are right there on the ground with them. And so sometimes when you have that brother or sister that's going through the same thing at a local level, and you've got that connection, a lot of these folks don't know anybody where they're at, and we're always connecting them with other businesses that we're working with. And so building that camaraderie at a local level, I think, is really key. I also think that we've got to really understand, if we're focusing on sustainability, we've got to focus on, is there a demand for a product or service? Does the product or service meet that demand? And then does that local market have the ability to pay for the product or service and cover my costs? And that third piece of it, a lot of times, is the piece that's missing. And so now, how can we help them with a supply chain that gets their product or service into an area where they can actually sell it and build a real business where they now can create jobs and do the things that they want to do for Christ? But you've really got to understand that market, and we've got to help them understand what they're signing up for before they flip the switch and start the business. And then once they do, how do we give them as much support as possible so they can be successful?